I threw a legitimate piece of furniture at this gentleman. We're blow for blow with each other. Blood was shed. Grabs me by my neck, throws me against the wall, starts choking me. I told him to just kill me because at that point, this is 7 years in. What are we doing here? I hated me so much that and I love the person that's literally so much more than I love myself. And I just take me out. I literally told him to kill me. Just finish already. Hey, thank you for listening or watching yet another episode of GetSetWithLissette. I don't know what brought you here, but I'm happy you are. And if nothing else, I hope you get at least one takeaway and something resonates with you. We're here to build community, and I hope you like it. So, one of the important aspects, in my opinion, of starting something like this or a journey like this is to truly allow space for vulnerable conversations. It's really hard to have what I've been sharing, inspiring conversations that empower individuals to take that first step or getting set to take that first step necessary to get things going for them. It's hard to do that if you don't create a space to allow for that vulnerability to occur. It needs to be a space that people feel validated, heard, and again, safe. And as I keep sharing and as I keep saying, I am a firm believer to practice what I preach, right? And how do you do that? By literally practicing. So let's have a conversation about vulnerability. It's one of those things that, again, it's another buzzword. I feel like we've been hearing it a lot. And at times you can almost tell that someone uses the word just to use it in a sentence kind of thing. It's giving, I feel like this is something I'm supposed to do, but not necessarily something that they really are doing. And even the moments that they're sharing that are supposedly vulnerable are not necessarily the most vulnerable, right? So let's talk about that. I actually looked up the definition of vulnerability just to share for context, and then we'll keep going from there. So the definition of vulnerability is the state of being open to attack or harm, either physically or emotionally. It can also mean being willing to show emotion or to allow one's weaknesses to be seen or known. Okay. Let's just start right there. To truly be vulnerable means that you open yourself up to a place where you could be attacked, right? When countries are at war, when war is happening, right? When they find a vulnerable spot, right? This is a spot of weakness to attack and get, our opponents or whatever. Same in sports, right? You're looking for positions of vulnerability so that you can come in at full force. That's what it means to be vulnerable. Why in the world would we do that? Why put yourself in a position to be attacked? That's how I feel. Like, I don't even understand the reason why. And then going with that second definition, right? Sharing one's weaknesses. So, quick little tidbit about Lissette. I like to pride myself, I'll say. And I have put a lot of emphasis in being the strong person, right? I'm the strong daughter that my parents can come to whenever they need something. I'm the strong friend that people can lean on. I'm the older sibling, so I'm by nature the stronger sibling who's there to catch the other. I've prided myself, if I'm really honest, on being strong. And I have created, I'm talking, studies should be done on me and my ability to armor myself and mask vulnerability. I have done such a good job that in me doing my self-work and self-awareness discovery, because let's also, quick disclaimer, please understand that it is not by coincidence that this has been a 7+ year journey to get onto this show, because I truly believe it took that amount of time for me to actually do the work on self. Because I am never, ever going to be the person that tells you to do something that I wouldn't do or that I haven't done myself. So I just want to throw that disclaimer out there real quick, because me circa earlier 2000s, I might have been. In fact, if you're listening to this episode and you were ever one of my clients, I just want to let you know right now, I probably was, because I know that I, for years, have been working in the field of people. Regardless if it was during my real estate journey that I'm in right now. Another quick disclaimer, we're going to go left real quick. Please know that Lissette is funding this passion project of hers within her real estate business. So if you ever have a referral, a friend, or you yourself is looking to buy or sell properties anywhere, honestly, in the world, reach out. I always share my email at the end. I'm not going to do it right now, but at the very end, I'll have a link so that you are able to reach out to me if you want to. I digress. Back to the main show. So, regardless of where I was in life or what arena I was, whether it was the real estate that I do now, or more importantly, and more honestly, the times that it was where I was being unauthentic, it was during the times when I was working in social services, when I was actually dealing with the most vulnerable populations, people that truly needed support. I was never disingenuous with the people that I worked with. I believed in every fiber of my being that every person that I've come across has an amazing story, an amazing light within them, and they always deserved better. But me today, I can stand in truth in knowing that I was not being truthful. I was amazing with my words. I gave great advice. I said all the right things, right? It's real easy to tell someone else, but let's also talk about that. How easy is it to give advice and tell someone else what they need to do? And yet you know within us, without a shadow of a doubt, that you should be doing the same thing. Me back then, that's what I did. I'd give sound advice. I was light years ahead. I was the youngest program director for one of the programs that I worked for, right? The youngest in history. I went to Maryland and to Seattle, and I went to all of these different places to have conversations about the amazing work that was being done within the programs that I was working. And we are not going to take away the fact that I was killing it in my jobs. Because I was. And why was I killing it? Because I truly, genuinely believed in the missions that I worked for. However, I wouldn't share my own personal weaknesses. Why? Because I didn't want to be seen as weak, especially in that role. I needed to show strength, not just for myself, but because of the people that I worked with, the friendships that I had at the time, the ... I could always find a reason to be present and be strong for someone else. And it was really easy to put all of my energy into helping. And it gave me light and it gave me energy in helping, right? Because it also allowed me the opportunity to avoid. And that's just real, right? When you're putting energy into something else, but you know that you have to do something, oh my God, you can find every perfect example, right? My significant other today, God love him, we joke all the time how horrible he is at reading, right? Anytime he starts reading a book or he really starts getting serious with it, he falls asleep. It's just something about reading him and sleep that they go in tandem, right? So it can be in the middle of the day, full night's rest, right? He can go outside and do yard work. He can work in something in the house. You name it, he's able to do it. If he actually sits down, because we've made a commitment to each other that we're always going to read at least 30 minutes a day. Once that time comes, knocked out. Because that was that one thing that he knew he needed to do. And it's the one thing that he struggles in, right? Quite different scenario. And yet, point made. How easy is it to do all the things, right? Put energy into everything that you have to get done in a day, the work that has to be done for whatever your employment is, working with this person, working with that person. But when you have to then actually sit down with self and do the one thing that is hard, right? It's just hard for you for ... That is the one thing that you struggle with. And that's how I lived my life for quite some time. I showed up as strong. I showed up as the strong whatever. And I stayed that way. Meanwhile, I was actually in a very toxic relationship. My personal life was in shambles. I couldn't look my mother in the eye and tell her the truth. And we can talk about it today, but during the time that I was going through it, me on the outside now, reflecting, she says to me, "You thought you were hiding it, but you weren't." She literally told me, and this was probably a little under a year after I ended this tumultuous relationship. It was on again, off again for about 10 years. And please know that this relationship will more than likely be discussed in multiple stories to come. And understand that I'm a firm believer that, like, I can't just put all things on one person. There's always three sides to the story, right? His, mine, the truth. But let's just say here. So I'm having conversation with my mom a little under a year after I had finally ended things. And we were just talking about, the growth, the changes, everything else, and how I was so sorry that I kept it from her. And she had said, "No, I'm sorry." And we had a very vulnerable conversation. We both cried. And let me just say, the reason why I'm not a crier is because of my mother. Yes, Mom, you don't cry and I don't cry. I can count on one hand the amount of times that I actually saw my mother cry. And it's because I believe that is just something that in our family, it's what we've done. And so I think that also predicates itself as to some of the reasons why I am the way that I am, right? We all know that, family traumas or family attitudes, like we're us millennials, we're all sitting on somebody's couch somewhere going through all the things that happened when we were younger. So there's that. However, we're talking and I said, I was hiding it and I was doing this. And she was like, "No, you weren't." She literally told me that light that's in you was gone. She said, "I watched you shrink for this person. You were not the same person. When you walked in a room, you walked in with your head down." So even when you think that you're doing a really good job at hiding things, please know that you may not be. The people that actually know you the closest probably know that something's not right. Some may call you out on it, and some may choose not to, just to allow you to go through whatever it is that you have to go through for yourself. Not because they don't care, but because they know that ultimately you have to make the decisions on what's best for you. And that was the position that my mother was in. She said, "As your mom, I did not want to have too strong of an opinion about what I believed you were going through." So I was clearly not hiding it well. But she chose not to speak on it because she did not want to create a divide so that if and when I was finally ready to make a change, that line of communication would have been broken in some way. Her fear of that drove her so far that she stayed quiet. Even though she could tell that there was something wrong, She chose not to share so that if I ever got to a point, or when, because I got to the point, when I got to the point where I was ready to have the conversation, I'd still, hopefully, and I did, go to my mom. And can we just say, kudos, Mom, for watching me do that for years. When I tell you the tears that we shared were, it was very cathartic, very cathartic. And why am I saying all of this now? Because it's important. And because we need to show more true authenticity and more vulnerability. Because you never actually really know what a person's going through, right? When I used to work in homelessness, I would say often, when I would go to other places and discuss the program and the things that we offered, I would often say, homelessness is not like the stigma that we tend to think of, right? It's not the individuals on the street peddling for money or whatever the case is, right? That's real easy to think of. But that's not typically homelessness. Homelessness is the coworker sitting next to you and you didn't realize that they slept in the car before they came into work that next shift or whatever. Homelessness is the person who comes into the grocery store counting their money and picking and choosing the food that they have because that's all they have, and they need to ensure that they can provide for their family, right? For as much as they can. Homelessness is the individuals that are couch surfing from friend to friend to friend because they don't actually have a home to call their own, right? People mask so many different things out of fear of judgment. And that was exactly what I was going through. I was so afraid of being labeled weak, victim, survivor, all of the greatness, all of these words that now in the work that I've done, I can stand true with them, and I can stand firmly because it is just one little piece of what makes Lissette, right? I can do that now. But me back then, the fear of the judgment just wouldn't allow me to actually speak openly and candidly. Mind you, it was very easy to be able to look at somebody else and see all their goodness and see all of the greatness and say, you don't deserve this, and that. But to be able to self-reflect, it wasn't as easy. It wasn't easy enough for me to say those things for self because, again, if I'm truly vulnerable, I didn't necessarily believe that. I knew on paper all of the amazingness and the qualities that I shared and the ways that I just genuinely felt for people and the fact that I wanted to have impact and I wanted to help as many people as I can. That has been since I was a kid, right? So I knew those things to be true. However, when you're in, warning trigger or trigger warning in the event that anyone has ever gone through this. I'm about to share something, so I just want to real quick provide a little trigger warning. So please, if this is a vulnerable conversation for you or a vulnerable situation, or if it's something that you're fresh in, help is out there. I will, in the description, provide some resources for some help. Because again, this community that's being created here is all about helping one another, empowering each other, and again, really looking to empower people to get set for whatever that next step is. So I just want to also just say, before I continue the conversation, I will also always ensure that there are resources available because no one ever needs to go through anything alone. Okay, that part's over. I just said that real quick because I wanted to make sure before I say the area that I've been most uncertain about or that I've hid the most from, I just need to make sure that I gave that trigger warning. So I had been in a fairly abusive relationship for 10 years on again, off again. Now, the thing about abuse, right, is that it never starts on the first date, right? An abuser never comes on their first date with you and are like, oh, I like you, but you know what I like more? The ability to control you and the fact that I'm really going to try my best to bring down your self-esteem, make you feel like you're completely alone. Oh, and by the way, every now and again when I'm upset and you're upset, your hands are going to be thrown. Yeah, they don't present themselves that way, right? Who would? And that's not how it works. It works slowly. It works at making you question things about yourself every now and again. Making jokes at the expense of you in front of people every now and again, right? That makes you a little bit like self-conscious, or you start to question things, pointing things out over and over again about your personality or different things that again start to make you question your own self-worth, your own self-value, right? Those things are always done. They always say that emotional abuse starts first, right? That emotional, the verbal abuse, right? It starts with words, right? Because then it just starts to crack at the actual shell, and it goes there before, ta-da, whatever the rest of it looks like. So because that had been happening, and it had been happening for years, the strong me at work, I would present a different persona. So in front of anybody else that I was around, while I was having a lot of internal conflict, I found myself kind of like playing two different versions of me. So I'd put on the facade of armor of strength, beacon of hope, here for it all, let's do this, right? But I didn't necessarily believe it. I questioned a lot of things about self. I would say things that I felt were parts of me that they had been parts of me and the evolution of me for years. And here I am in my adulthood, and I would start to still share those things, but now with not as much not with as much intention, right? Or true belief. So I found myself living like that double life. I was the go-getter, ambitious, strong woman by day, fully distraughted, completely self-conscious, uncertain about who I was, and if I'm very raw and honest, didn't even want to be here kind of person. And everyone always says that you get to a point where everyone has their breaking point, right? We all have that moment where it's like enough is enough. And that threshold looks different for everyone else. And so I've been going through these different things, and I do believe that one of my superpowers at that time was the ability to kind of live this double life, right? I was Clark Kent during the day and Superman at night. However, let's reverse it. I was acting very Superman-ish during the day because I was trying to be the do-gooder, doing all of the good, giving the best advice and everything during the day, and Clark Kent at night, right? Because I was actually much more introverted, much more going inside, not feeling wonderful, not actually having all the feels. It wasn't a great place. However, I say all of that to say that's the reason for this episode. Because I need you to know all the parts of me. And I need you to understand that I probably understand more than you could ever envision, should I say. And I want, with every fiber of my being, to prevent other people from going through what I've gone through. So that's the reason for this episode. True vulnerability is opening yourself up to be attacked and bearing your weaknesses, showing what they really are. And it's important to start with this where it's just you and I having this conversation, because I need you to see my heart and I need you to know that I care. So any conversation we have moving forward, it's going to come from a place of genuine connection, true relationship, and an understanding that goes beyond. Because I know what it's like to feel alone. I know what it's like to feel like a fraud or a hypocrite. I know what it's like to feel like you're living that double life, right? And so I wanted to give a little perspective. Never judge a book by its cover. It's easier said than done, right? But it's a reason why some of these old little antidotes and things that we say last the test of time. And it's because it still to this day rings true. So when I think of the never judge a book by its cover, for me, it means, you never know what's below the surface. And so those are the conversations that you want to have, right? You want to get to know someone below the surface. You can't judge someone based off of what they present. You never know, both good and bad, what's really behind the curtain. So I need you to be able to see who I am behind the curtain. All of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. We're gonna have some serious things. And me today, I can say that I find power in vulnerability. And I have learned that all of those areas of weaknesses that I have are truly strength. I read once that fish, right? In order for fish to survive, they have to go deep within the water, right? They have to go really deep to actually, because that's where they breathe the most, and then they come back to the surface. And that's what I feel like vulnerability is. It's going deep down, right? You're going really far in to the depths of water and allowing some of those things to come up to the surface. And that's where life happens. That's where breath occurs, right? For fish, they get their breath deep down in the water. And so vulnerability is that breath. It is the going deep and the ability to get down in there that actually then brings out that breath. You're right. You're finally able to breathe. And you're also finally able to really shed off all of the unnecessary baggage and the like I had said, me and the armor, like all of that armor has finally been taken off of me. I'm not carrying an extra vision of, 30 pounds of all of this fakeness. I'm now able to stand in truth and just say, like, this is what you get, right? You get an imperfect person, right? Because this is the best version of me. Why is it the best version? Because it's completely imperfect. But it's a person who has gone through the ringer and still stands. How bad did it get? So let's talk about that, right? Oof. Okay, so story time. As I said, as I've shared, so the way that abuse works, it started verbal. So at the time of this relationship, it was I sound horrible, but it's fine. It's fine, guys. We've all been this person, okay? So I actually had made the decision to end and call off a wedding and end a relationship because it was not the right thing for me. And we were not the right people for each other. And I stand in that. And when you realize that you're not, you're just not. And so after that was all said and done and everything was gone, I got involved with someone that I've actually knew prior to that, my past engagement in that relationship, and someone that I knew around the way. And we started to kick it or whatever and let's hang out. But from rip, it wasn't the right person. And I say this in all sincerity, and I do apologize, but like it was supposed to be the rebound. That's what it was supposed to be. The rebound that lasted 10 years, on again, off again, but 10 years. So I can't put it all on him. Like, we were just toxic with each other because I was not fully healed from the last relationship to jump into another relationship. That was never supposed to be the move. And yet I did. Why? Because I'm a relationship girly and it just feels good to be in a relationship. And there's something of comfort to have a person, right? Your person. And look, no judgment coming from this way because I totally get it. Like, when I tell you there was very little time, there was little time. It wasn't like a ridiculous, I don't need no hate, no nothing. But I mean, it was real. It was very little time. And we were two broken people that should not have been together. So I say that because anytime I share my story, I try my best to make sure that I'm also very honest because I don't want to create a man or this picture of a person that is just this monster, because that's not the case. And to be completely honest, I still to this day think that man is genuinely one of the most creative, artistic, and just intelligent men I've ever met in my life. And phenomenal being. We just weren't good for each other. And it's okay to say that. We were round head, square peg kind of thing, or however that saying goes. Two entities that were not supposed to work, that we were forcefully trying to make work so bad. Why? I don't know. Hindsight's 20/20. And yet that's where we were. But it was an important time in my life because it also created, after I came out, a stronger sense of self, a better understanding, right, of not only me as a person, but how much, and I don't know if this is going to sound crazy, but hey, we're talking about vulnerability, so I'm about to be real vulnerable. It did show me how much I could actually endure. And so I didn't realize just how strong and how deep my strength was until I was at the brink of death, right? We were that toxic couple of, let me look at your phone, him looking at mine, going through each other's messages. Who is that? Who is that? It was bad. It was horrible. It was unhealthy. It was all the things that so many movies are made of. I'm talking box office hit for life crap. But it's what it was. It was high intensity. Let's be real, also great passion, because with that toxic sense also comes crazy bounds of passion and huge moments of, we've all been there, just genuine growth, right? And those explosions, right, created for great explosions, wink, wink. But that was still very toxic. And I found myself, so I'll say this. The first time I ever got hit, it was a shock. It was a fight. Because again, that first time I got smacked was not the first time we had an unhealthy debate / argument. However, it was the first time it got physical. And in that moment, that should have been it. I was stunned, shocked, and immediately I was welcomed with sorries and apologies and, oh my God, I don't know what got into me and it'll never happen again. And I was the one that, nope, this is it. This is unacceptable. We have literally crossed a boundary. We have crossed the line of respect. It needs to end. So I get all of you, and I know that was the way the response was supposed to be. Did it, had it, he left, whatever. But I also understand when the flowers arrive at the office and at the house, the countless emails and phone calls, because it started with phone calls and text messages. And of course I was, block them. Then it goes into emails. Now he's emailing me, right? Block, Now he knows my work email. Block. Now it was I'm talking 6 to 8 months of straight pursuing. And again, he was a creative, and the songs what got me, if I'm honest. I got a song, but flowers and songs. So I also can relate and understand, and it's embarrassing to admit, but I get it. I know what it is to just be like, you know what? That was a mistake. He'll be different, right? Or the infamous, I can change him, right? This broken man who also had a lot of childhood trauma and all of the things, I'm so strong for everyone else. I can change this guy. Oof, how many of us have done that? I can be the change. And for my fellas out there, this is not just for men. How many toxic women have you come across and you're on some she ain't never have a man like me? Or this person ain't never, whatever the case is, fill in the blank. So that became me. He became my project. I was going to save this man. Got back together. We're good for probably a year or so. Our on again, off again was based upon distrust. Why the distrust? Because of the way that we had started, right? Both coming out of other situations, other things. So there's that whole story. That in and of itself could be its own episode. But right now we're just focused on this. So now we're together, but there were moments for distrust. That slap turned into now a push against a wall and a big mugging, right? Fast forward. Now, instead of 7 to 8 months taking him back, it only took me 3, and I still took him back. And we continue this cycle until the point of the lowest of lows. Now, our arguments escalate on a regular, right? Because that's the thing. I always say to individuals, I was not the kind of person that was in a relationship where when I got home from work or when he got home from work and dinner was done, if dinner was cold, he'd smack me. No, that's not my story. And for those that are going through that, I hear you. I'm sorry. And please know you deserve better. But that wasn't the situation that I was in. Our whole entire dynamic was just on these peaks and valleys. Our highs were amazingly high, but as high as they were, our lows were just as low. And when they were low, they were, the pits of hell, low, okay? And so in those moments, when we would go back and forth, I was just as equally, for those that can see me, I'm not the biggest, right? I'm pretty petite, but please do not be fooled by the small stature. A lot of weight comes with this. There's a lot of power behind this small stature. And I'd give it just as much, right? So I think I found, if I'm really honest, strength in the fact that I was fighting back. It made me feel like I wasn't in as abusive of an abusive situation. Well, no, I'm not being abused. We're fighting. We're literally having a fight, right? Anyone that knows me knows that I'm sassy, I'm feisty. I've been in a fight or two, okay? So I would justify those arguments and those physical arguments based on, it's a give and take. Mind you, 6+ foot gentleman, nicely built, definitely hit the gym a time or two, athlete. And then there's me. And yet I'd still go back and forth and back and forth. So why am I sharing the fact that we kept going back and forth with each other the way that I am? Because I know what that's like. I also know what it's like to love someone so much and see the good there that you at times continue to put someone above and you want to do so much for them at the detriment of yourself. And again, it's also to share probably one of the most vulnerable moments with you. I'm going to pull the Band-Aid with the biggest one because in any other story that I share after this, water under the bridge, right? If I can share and say in truth the fact that I got out of this abusive situation, then anything else I share from this point on cake. It's also important to lay the groundwork and really allow myself to share this information and these stories, because I need you to really know my heart and who I am. All of this makes me the person that I am, right? Those experiences created a deeper understanding, because I know a lot, speaking to the girls right now only, I know a lot of women who have said, and I was one of them, that could never be. I would never accept ... You don't know what you're willing to accept, honestly, until you're faced with those moments of having to accept something that you did not expect was going to come. You also don't know the strength that you possess until strength is the only thing that you can lean on. I have countless moments that went really deep and really dark. So those two first ones, right, that was light. That was nothing. And we would break up again and get back together. There was a moment in particular, and I'll share this story to also be fair, because I don't ever want to be the kind of person that just throws, someone else out there. So as I said, we were in a toxic situation. So there was this one night where he had gone out and gotten drunk or whatever and came back home, and I guess started Facebook messaging some person, but wanted to make sure that I saw that this was happening, because that's the rise that he'd get, right? He would get a rise out of hurting me. And so came in, left the phone in the bedroom, but chose to then go and sleep on the couch, right? Phone up. And look, y'all know what I'm saying, because y'all know that I know. So it's on purpose when you doing dirt, but you purposely leave the phone up in a dark room so that every time that a message came in or whatever, it was just lighting up the house, right? Lighting up my bedroom like Christmas. I'm talking ding, 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 ding. And he wanted to get that out of me. And did he get it? Finally pick up the phone, see the conversation. And I remember I went into the living room in a rage. All I saw was red. And I initiated the fight. Little old me, for those that can see me, can see how small I am. I picked up, at the time we had, so you can see based off of the set that I'm a lover of old, comfy furniture. So I had, for those that can see, an ottoman that was made out of real wood, similar to the one that's here on set. However, it was circular. And so it was a little smaller. It was just a small circle wooden ottoman. And I'm setting it up so that you can understand, for those that can actually see it on our YouTube, that fully wooden piece of furniture, I picked it up and threw it directly on him while he was asleep. So, of course, he woke up because he couldn't breathe because it fell on him, and there was rage. And I'm saying this story in particular for two reasons. Unfortunately, this was not my bottom, and it should have been, as I continue to share the rest of the story, is one. And two, I need people to understand that I'm just as at fault. And two truths can be true. You can be put in an abusive situation and things that are happening to you are not okay. And you can also be an active participant in it. And you have to recognize what parts of you are leaning into the reasons why things are happening the way that they are. And that's not me saying that in a way to try to push judgment or anything, because again, this is not a space of judgment. This is a safe place and space. I'm saying it as a person who has had to recognize that herself. Hence, sharing this story. I was the perpetrator at this point. I threw a legitimate piece of furniture at this gentleman. Gets up. We're all over the living room, the dining room. We went into the kitchen. We're blow for blow with each other. Blood was shed. I took out a butcher knife as if I was going to stab this man, who then grabs me by my neck, throws me against the wall, at one point starts choking me. And I was on the ground at that point when he was choking me. At this point, we had made our way to our bedroom because he had gotten the knife out of my hand. Now we're in the bedroom. And while he's choking me, I looked up in his eyes and said, with the little bit of breath that I could get out of me, because I literally, my windpipes were being, I was being choked, literally. I told him to just kill me. Because at that point, this is 7 years in. What are we doing here? I hated me. I hated me so much that and I love the person that's literally so much more than I love myself. And I just take me out. I literally told him to kill me. Just finish already. Because this can't be life. This cannot be what we're doing. I felt like a horrible person. Immediately he dropped me. Hands fell off of me, and I scared him because I literally at that point, I can say, it's almost embarrassing to say, but I can say truly, I meant every word, and I wanted to just be gone. But luckily, I wasn't. He let me go, and not only did he let me go, we then actually heard a knock at the door. So it was all serendipitous because I say that, he lets me go, but then we also heard a knock. I go out into the living room. I sit on the couch. He opens the door. My neighbor had heard the ruckus because I'm not exaggerating when I said we literally went from room to room this one instance. Neighbor had called the cops, and so they were doing like a care call, I guess. And 2 cops come in. I knew one of the cops. I went to school with him. So they come in. They're like, we got a noise complaint. They're talking. I'm sitting on the couch in some sweats. Very similar to how I sit now. I'm very, very, kind of closed in, just sitting there. And I remember him looking at me, and he knows me by name. So he's like, Lissette, are you okay? And I said, yeah. Just like that. Very high pitch. Just, yeah. Nothing else came out of my mouth. My significant other at the time continued to talk to them and tell them, oh, so sorry. Yeah, we got into a little tiff, but nothing's happening. We're good. And I just remember thinking, what are you doing, chick? Because the cop that knew me never took his sights off of me. He just, while they're all talking, the cop that knows me, as well as the other cop and, my ex, they're all having conversation, and he's just looking at me. And when I say I felt like he was looking into my soul, I could just feel. And it wasn't the judgment. I could feel the desperation of him wanting me to just say I wasn't okay so bad. And I didn't. And, of course, that wasn't the end of us. In fact, we moved from that place because of what had happened, and we moved in together to another place. At that point, I had probably 2 other really big moments. I'm not going to drag this out really long, guys, but I need you to just understand that in the midst of all of these things that were happening was simultaneously the times when I was also traveling to all of these different places, having conversations with groups of people, talking about programs that I was running that dealt with healthy pregnancy outcomes, domestic violence specifically, maternal addiction, all the ways, all of the downtrodden, trying to find and get funding for and discuss all of the strides that we were having the amount of success that was going on with our program, the fact that we had one of the highest amounts of, well, it was the lowest amounts of relapse because we had the highest amount of women that were maintaining and keeping their sobriety, reuniting families. I was doing amazing work in the midst of this time in my life. And I knew that I was the biggest hypocrite, and yet continued to push forward, have the conversations, and I found strength in my armor. Fast forward, I now find strength in my vulnerability. This has probably been one of the hardest episodes and conversations that I'm having, and I haven't even broken the surface, guys. Those moments that I gave, that's still not all of it. And that's embarrassing to say. But the beauty is the person that I've become. There's strength in standing in your truth. There's power in words and in sharing what's happened. Never shy away from having these kinds of conversations. Ask for help when you really need it. Don't just say, yeah, you're fine. You never want to put yourself in a position where you push everyone away. And thankfully, I'm so blessed that even in my worst of worst moments, and even when I had put myself so far away from those that I loved, they never left me. Because there's a lot of people who lose relationships and are completely ostracized. I'm so happy to say that that was not my experience and that was not something that I went through. Thankfully, I did back away from people, but I'm so blessed that the circle that I have and the family that I have, they never allowed me to go too far. They always maintained just enough of a reach to ensure that I was at least alive and safe. And I found it to be really important to talk about this early in my journey of sharing these conversations, because I really need you to understand just how, what's the word I'm looking for? I need you to understand that I get it. I'll just say that. And I'm never going to be the person to say what you need to do. I've steered away from that. I'm only going to listen and give the best advice that I can based upon personal experience and also what just seems right. But I try my best to lean on experiences to ensure that I never ostracize or make a person feel judged based off of whatever it is that they're going through. Because Lord knows I am not the kind of person that can cast the first stone, because, honey, I got stories for days. So like we always say, I'm always looking to have, if you have nothing else from this entire time, my takeaway for today is to know that there's strength in vulnerability. Stand in that power. And please, 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 when things get too heavy, don't be too prideful to ask for help. So as always, sending light, sending love. And if you have anything you want to share or any stories that are similar, or want to just seek some advice, or maybe just need someone else to get your story out just a little or put it on paper, you can always just email me at GetSetWithLissette@gmail.com. It'll be down at the bottom here. It'll also be in the description in the podcast. I would love to hear. And if I can provide shed some light or shed some positivity or any words of encouragement, I'm here to do so. And if you're actually in a situation where you truly need help, there will be resources linked below as well. So this one was heavy. This one was hard. But guys, this is a journey. So as always, I'm looking to have inspiring conversations that empower you to get set to take the next step. Bye.